Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming and for joining us today at our World IBD Day. It's an important and interesting agenda we have to go through, so I would leave the floor before to Bulgarian MEP Monica Panayotova and then to Sergio Ferrari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you very is it working?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think it is working now, is it? The micro?
Yeah, it's working.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction, dear guests and dear patients. It gives me a great pleasure for me to welcome you here at the European Parliament. Actually, this is the institutions and the right place that called open to act as the spokesman of the citizens of United Europe. I not only feel glad to greet you all, but I must admit I feel really honored to be with you because first of all, I had the chance to meet people who have decided to step forward and be active. And secondly, because I see people that have decided to fight and shape their own future. I understood that you have come a long way in your struggle, the European Federation of Patients with Inflammatory Bowel Disease. This is the organization which is constantly growing, not only about in terms of members, but also in terms of ambitions and objectives. And I really would like to welcome you and to say good luck to all of you. I understood that a lot more could be accomplished as well, so you could count on me and my colleague as well. I first heard about this cruel disease from a friend of mine, Martin Kuzhinko from Bulgaria, actually some 3 years ago when I went to visit him at the hospital. And I've just actually they have just diagnosed him at that time. I read that Crohn's disease was a rare disease, but is it actually? Now I know much more about this really cruel disease. Now I know that more than 2.2 million of Europeans and about 5 million worldwide have been affected by IBD, and I'm really worried about that, and I'm frightened. I'm proud of my friend because he created an association in Bulgaria, and step by step I see that this rise awareness on the topic in my country, which is not so typical topic in our society. It's very important for especially prevention for young people, as we have just spoken about. Therefore, I fully support your cause. I'm convinced that today's event and the similar events taking place all over the world in the framework of the World IBD Day initiative are steps in the right direction. For the first time on 19th of May, we will celebrate and we will make an initiative in this direction for the World IBD Day. I'm pretty sure that we should learn and speak more about the disease. Access to treatment for patients could be facilitated and a lot more can be improved in the healthcare systems. I wish you fruitful collaboration and I look forward to meeting you again in October. So good luck to your initiative. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Panayotova, and I'd like to introduce you the Italian MEP Sergio Cofferati that has already helped us last year and that has started an ongoing cooperation with us. Thanks for your attention.
Ho bisogno di tenere il microfono io, no? Ok, vai.
Sono io che ringrazio voi per avermi reinvitato. Sono contento che possa proseguire in questo modo il lavoro comune. Gli obiettivi sono quelli che ci eravamo già prefissati nell'occasione del precedente incontro e credo che sia importante non soltanto proseguire su quella strada, ma aggiungere ove possibile, e speriamo lo sia, il contributo anche di altre forme associative per la realizzazione del progetto che avevamo tracciato.
Thank you for inviting me, and again, I'm pleased to be here again, and I can reiterate that we are here again following the same objectives that we fixed last year. We can keep on following what we already drafted last year, and I'm sure that we can join other forces and have other contribution from our other associations and groups that can join us for this fight.
C'è un aspetto scientifico del lavoro che cercheremo di fare insieme, ovviamente va sviluppato. Abbiamo la fortuna di avere con noi le competenze necessarie perché arrivi a conclusioni sempre più definite, precise e utili ad affrontare sul piano medico i problemi che sono delle persone affette dal morbo. Però abbiamo anche esigenze di altra natura. Da un lato il bisogno di avere un riconoscimento legislativo del carattere invalidante di queste malattie e dall'altra parte di avere anche forme di protezione e di tutela sociale, perché le persone che sono colpite dal morbo hanno un'oggettiva e pesantissima limitazione della loro capacità di vita relazionale e anche delle loro attività professionali o lavorative che siano.
I'm glad that we can see that we have the involvement of the scientific world, and we can jointly work together to develop, and we know that we have the necessary competencies to face, either from the medical point of view, but also looking at some more social and very, very important needs that we need to take into consideration, that from one point can be the legal recognition of a disability or the huge problems that from the legal point of view, from the social point of view, people with IBD are daily facing. And there is a need of a stronger social protection because people with IBD daily experience difficulties and they need to be protected in a way in order to achieve full rights and full citizenship.
Per cui nel mentre deve proseguire il lavoro per la prevenzione e la cura è indispensabile che nelle normative europee, ma anche contemporaneamente in quelle nazionali, vengano riconosciuti i caratteri ai quali mi riferivo poc'anzi. Attività come quelle che fisiologicamente ognuno di noi affronta tutti i giorni, per una persona affetta dal morbo sono spesso impossibili o comunque difficilissime da svolgere. Allora è necessario avere una normativa comunitaria e poi ed è altrettanto importante che le stesse normative nazionali siano coerenti con i riconoscimenti che chiediamo all'Unione Europea. Abbiamo presentato, condividendo nel testo, un'interpellanza, ci sono state prime risposte, bisogna proseguire coinvolgendo quanti più parlamentari europei è possibile in questo lavoro di approfondimento e di sollecitazione alla Commissione.
We have to look at the aspect of prevention and care, which is important, but we also need a European legal framework that has to be the basis also for a national recognition of rights of people with IBD, because some activities that for other people are usually daily activity, normal activity, for many of them are nearly difficult to achieve. So we need a strong European legal framework that has to be applied, of course, also at the national level. And as you know, we already presented the parliamentary questions last year, and we are starting getting the first reactions. Of course, we need to involve as many members of the parliament as possible, but also European institutions. So I'm sure that we will be able to gather new forces for fighting IBD.
Il coinvolgimento dei parlamentari europei è necessario e utile per sollecitare la Commissione ad agire nella direzione che ricordavo poc'anzi, ma serve anche perché ognuno di loro nel suo paese solleciti provvedimenti legislativi coerenti con l'intervento che chiediamo alla Commissione.
So, from one side, we think that involving as many members of the Parliament as possible is important for influencing the Commission in their next decisions. But also we think that we need to have maps for all over Europe, because they can strongly influence the national application of law that take into consideration people with IBD.
Credo che sia però importante, c'è la mia disponibilità a lavorare insieme a voi anche in questa direzione, tentare fin da adesso di coinvolgere, ancor prima della definizione legislativa della protezione, di coinvolgere la rappresentanza sociale più importante in materia, che è quella dell'organizzazione dei lavoratori. Molte delle persone affette da questo morbo hanno difficoltà evidenti sia a svolgere attività professionali e ancor di più a svolgere attività di lavoro dipendente, che come sappiamo è regolato da tempi e da scansioni più rigide. In nessun luogo della contrattazione collettiva oggi ci sono norme che riconoscono e proteggono la specificità di questa malattia. Allora credo che sia importante cercare di avviare un confronto con la rappresentanza delle persone che lavorano, in questo caso i sindacati europei, per individuare insieme a loro delle possibili occasioni contrattuali nelle quali introdurre il riconoscimento, il rispetto e la tutela delle persone che sono affette da questo morbo e che hanno esigenze molto molto particolari, perché senza una protezione adeguata sul piano del riconoscimento e del rispetto dei diritti conseguenti, il rischio è che molte ragazze e ragazzi non riescono nemmeno ad entrare nel mercato del lavoro, perché respinte dalle condizioni rigide di quel mercato, che sono pensate per persone non prive di qualsiasi patologia. Questo è un limite del mercato del lavoro, ma credo che sia un limite che si può correggere.
Well, I try to do my
questo è stato
best.
va bene.
I think that there is also the need of working together to involve, even before we are able to set an European legal framework, all the social representatives, like the European unions, trade unions, because I think that one of the most sensitive issues is the fact that this disease affects workers, and sometimes they don't have sufficient protection as far as the labor market is concerned, and they have to face a lot of difficulties in keeping a job, because as far as I know, in working contracts there are no specific rules, no specific possibility of taking into consideration people with such a disease. So I strongly believe that we need to negotiate with European trade unions to identify, if it's possible, special rules and special laws within the contracts, so to take into consideration those kind of special needs. I think that it has to be a targeted protection, and we also have to take into consideration that due to the working contracts that don't take into consideration this kind of specificities, particularly many youngsters, women and men, can't even enter the labor market because they can't respect this kind of contracts that are not including this type of protection.
Credo che questo confronto con le organizzazioni sindacali europee si debba tentare il più rapidamente possibile, in modo tale anche da poter arrivare nel mese di ottobre, quando promuoveremo qui un incontro che speriamo possa essere di alto livello, con tanti soggetti, tutti quelli che fin qui hanno collaborato con voi, e se ne arriveranno altri ancor meglio, ma dicevo in quell'occasione, per quell'appuntamento, si possa anche avere l'opinione e speriamo anche il contributo delle forme di rappresentanza sociale alle quali intendiamo rivolgerci. Ottobre può essere un'occasione molto importante per dare anche adeguata visibilità al tema e attraverso la comunicazione non soltanto informare ma cercare di avere anche ulteriori contributi per il lavoro che faremo insieme.
I think that as far as the European trade unions are concerned, I think we need to start as soon as possible because we have a next step to be taken into consideration, which is the mid-October meeting, and which I hope will be a high-level meeting. We are still working on it, and I hope that involving European trade unions soon will also give us the opportunity of getting new opinions and new contribution in our debate. I think that October is an important occasion because we have the chance to reach higher visibility, and not only as far as the European institutions are concerned, but we can have a higher visibility and a stronger voice in Europe.
Torno a ringraziarvi per l'invito, vi riconfermo la mia disponibilità a proseguire il lavoro con voi. Purtroppo devo lasciarvi presto per altri impegni, un lavoro sempre un po' tumultuoso e difficile da programmare del Parlamento. Se ci sono cose alle quali posso rispondere, perché sono curiosità o domande che volete farmi, sono disponibile a rispondere, diversamente vi saluto.
I thank you again for inviting me. I reiterate my willingness and my availability in supporting this process. I'm sorry I have to leave very soon because I have other engagement. It's always very complicated to match all the meetings. I'm available should you have any question here now. And in any case, I thank you so much, and we will see again in October. Any questions?
May I ask you one question, please? The aspect of the trade unions in this concept and to have them to collaborate is a very good one. Are there already some diseases, or is there already any disease which is mentioned in contracts, rheumatoid arthritis or whatever, in contracts and respected in work contracts?
Alcuni contratti di lavoro dei riferimenti particolari ad alcune specifiche malattie, perché se tu lo sai.
La contrattazione collettiva è molto diversa in tutti i paesi europei per struttura e per contenuti. In alcuni contratti, nelle situazioni più evolute, ci sono riferimenti però di carattere generale a patologie invalidanti che consentono di avere la protezione del posto di lavoro, non necessariamente la retribuzione durante i periodi di assenza. Però la cosa più importante è avere un riconoscimento anche attraverso i contratti, secondo me, del carattere invalidante di questa patologia, cioè passare dalla descrizione generica, che è sempre interpretabile e dunque tendenzialmente escludente, invece all'individuazione dettagliata di ciò che è protetto, coperto dalle norme contrattuali. Se ci fossero auspicabilmente prime esperienze di questa natura, poi come capita normalmente nella contrattazione si diffondono per imitazione, questo sarebbe un grande vantaggio.
Could be a showcase for the problem.
Certo.
Yeah.
As far as I know, you have to take into consideration that contracts are very different in every European country. In the most, let's say, better developed ones, you can find some general references to disability pathologies, and usually they are taken into consideration, generally speaking, a job place protection. However, I think it would be really important to achieve a general recognition of the disabling character of IBD And I also think that if this disability can be better described with detailed rules, it can be a showcase, it can be a pilot for other disease, so we can really start opening a new door as far as the working contracts are concerned.
Okay. Thank you very much to both of you for not only your presence here, but for what you have said and for your availability to cooperate with us. For us, it's an essential moment of our history and of our fight, and so far your presence gains a sort of even more depth, sense and meaning. We are looking forward to keep on working with you and to organize together this event in mid-October. I believe that in the European Year of Citizens, we feel the necessity even more that our people could feel to be full citizen of the European Union. And up to today, this is sometimes still a big challenge. It's a challenge because it's challenging for our youngsters to gain a full scholar curriculum. It's a challenge for our people to get a job and to maintain it. It's still a challenge to have access to treatment in an equal way all over Europe. And most of all, it's a challenge to gain the real good treatment at the real right moment. This requires a new approach, also from our side. And that means to involve more stakeholders and to get and to gain a different perspective.
Questo significa coinvolgere numerosi altri interlocutori in modo da poter mettere insieme diversi punti di vista.
Joining forces with the authorities, with the political community, the scientific community, the medical community, and of course with other patients, communities with other diseases, is for sure essential now and cannot be delayed anymore. For being ready for October, for having this event in the right way, in order to have an event that could be meaningful and practically useful for our members and for the people that we have the honor to represent, is essential that all these subjects can be involved and can participate in this discussion. The next 5 months are probably the most difficult in our history. It's a challenge that we cannot lose. It's a challenge that we want to win, but we cannot win it alone. So we need your political experience in order to move in the right way. We need the cooperation of the European Chronic Colitis organizations, of the nurse organization, and of the United European Gastroenterology group. We need also the medical community to be next to us and to work with us, not only in hospital every day, but also in these moments. We need to collect opinions and points of view. Indeed, more than ever, with a bottom-up approach. So listening to our base, listening to our people, listening to all our stakeholders in order
possibili interlocutori,
to gather together a proposal that
elaborare una proposta comune
could have a concrete chance to be successful,
che possa diventare un
and
successo.
this proposal will be successful only if it will be at the end able to change in better
E questa proposta avrà
the
successo se
life of
riuscirà a
persons with
migliorare
IBD,
la vita delle persone
very
con
practically,
IBD in modo molto pratico,
even the very everyday life.
anche nella vita di tutti i giorni.
But we never forget that inflammatory bowel diseases have an important, sometimes even a devastating social impact, and it's time to stop this.
Ed è importante
Thank you.
ostacolarlo.
I would now give the floor to Professor Maurizio Vecchi, University of Milan, for giving us an overview on the issues of equal access to health.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you for inviting me here in this interesting roundtable. I think that the fact that inflammatory bowel diseases are indeed the challenging diseases has been suggested in the previous presentations as well. But what I wanted to point out is the fact that indeed they are challenging diseases from the beginning of their course throughout their entire course because of several reasons. For example, at the beginning they are very difficult to diagnose. We have data that in many countries many patients wait for a diagnosis for even years before they get a correct diagnosis. And this is mostly due, I think, to the fact that patients are reluctant to refer embarrassing symptoms to the doctors, but even to their relatives and to their friends, because these symptoms are related to bowel functions and stool characteristics, which is not easy to speak about to other people. Also, when they have had the opportunity to speak to their doctors, sometimes doctors feel that IBD is erroneously, think erroneously that IBD is a rare condition. Actually, we just heard that there are around 2 million people in Europe that suffer from this disease. So, although they are not very frequent disease, they are not so rare that we should think about them always. Sometimes the diagnosis is also difficult because the symptoms are unclear and may suggest the presence of irritable bowel syndrome or other functional syndromes which are not as severe, as important as inflammatory bowel disease, and this may differ the execution of the diagnostic exam, which is unfortunately also an invasive diagnostic tool, and doctor and patient may not be eager to perform this diagnostic tool, which is colonoscopy, because they are afraid of feeling pain or other issue relating to colonoscopy. So as a result, frequently young patients suffering from these diseases have a long-lasting and unjustified suffering from an unknown disease, which makes them which gives them a very high reduction of in the quality of life, but also a loss of energy, a loss of trust, a loss of hope, because they suffer, they have symptoms, but they do not know from what they do suffer. And this also, as a result, has a loss of working activity and also a loss of social relationships that we have referred to before. So what we should all do, and particularly I think what the European community should try to perform in order to obtain a faster diagnosis for this patient. Well, first of all, is an education issue, is to better know the disease, and this knowledge should be by patients and by doctors as well. So these diseases should be known better compared to how they are known at this moment. Also, we should try to push the diffusion of non-invasive tests to understand what is the presence of the disease compared to a functional disease. For example, there are some non-invasive tests of the stool that can help in distinguishing between functional disorder and organic disorder like calprotectin. Also, I think that another important campaign to be done by the European community would be to diffuse a very well-tolerated colonoscopy. Most of the patients have a fear of colonoscopy because they know that it's painful, it's a very painful exam, but indeed we have a method by which colonoscopy can become a very easy, painless procedure, and I think we should enforce this type of procedures in order to make patients less worried about the colonoscopy. And also the colonoscopy should be performed very well. I mean, sometimes I see colonoscopy that, in which biopsies are not taken, and this means that maybe a possibility of diagnosis is missed by this type of colonoscopy. So colonoscopy has to be done in a very well tolerated way, but also in a very well performed way. This is for the beginning of the disease, and during the course of the disease we know that these are diseases of very long duration, because most frequently the diagnosis is made at a young age or in a young adult, and since we do not know the etiology, the cause of the disease, we do not have let's say a definitive therapy. So the disease keeps on being there, and the chronic nature of the disease will accompany the patient for his entire life. So this is a very important issue, because the patient feels the chronicity of his illness, and this is a very important issue affecting the quality of life of these patients. And patients also need to take drugs for their entire lives. This is very difficult for some of them, and so I think that to work for a good compliance by the patient is another very important issue that we should reach. But despite the maintenance treatment, these diseases are also frequently relapsing, and so patients have to have a good access to the medical team. We'll talk about this a little later. And this frequent relapse need early therapy, because we know that if we recognize the relapse and we treat the relapse early, we will get better results, and the disease will get back to remission very easily and very rapidly. Also, patient may present with many extraintestinal complications, and this extraintestinal complication may be related both to the disease itself, but also to the drugs that we have to use to treat the disease. And these are very important, because sometimes some symptoms may not be easily related to the underlying intestinal diseases. So I think we need a very attentive eye to look at this patient because of this complexity of the disease. So the possible solutions to this problem that the patient may face during their life is to have to increase and to have an easy and rapid access to the medical team. This is very important, as I said before, because an early treatment would result in a better endpoint of the relapse, but also to have a medical team which is a multidisciplinary team, because a patient with an inflammatory bowel disease may have actually diseases and symptoms involving many other organs. So we may need to have the eye doctor, we may need to have the rheumatologist with us, we may need to have several other specialists to take care of this patient in a very good way. But also in the long course, there are other problems facing the life of these patients. For example, these patients are usually frequently undergo to complicated surgery. 60%, even 80% of patients with Crohn's disease will undergo surgery, and up to 30% of patients with ulcerative colitis will also undergo surgery. So surgery is a very important issue in the life of a patient with inflammatory bowel disease. Also, I think that many of the patients are worried about the possibility that cancer will come during the long course of the disease, and this cancer may be disease-related, like colorectal cancer, which are increased in these patients with long-standing diseases, but also sometimes possibly drug-related cancer like lymphoma, which may be related to the use of immunosuppressor or anti-TNF treatments. Another important issue in the prevention of this cancer is the fact that the drug itself may indeed help in getting a prevention toward this cancer. So I think again the compliance to have a good compliance with the drug treatment for this patient is very, very important. So I think this is are still other problems that the patients are facing in the long course of the disease, and the possible solution of these problems are to have particularly specifically trained surgeon specialists, which is very important. The surgery of this patient is very complicated, is very complex, and so we think that only very, very well trained and very specialized surgeon can treat this type of patient. So I think an effort should be to have particularly masters of inflammatory bowel disease surgery, or anyway particularly school to teach inflammatory bowel disease surgery in order to have in the different countries of Europe the different level of ability of performing surgery. And also, I think it's very important as a message for the entire life of the patient is to favor compliance to drug therapy, because this is very important, as we said before, for maintenance of remission, but also for chemoprevention of possible cancer. So this is very important to have a patient with a very good connection with the doctor. So in summary, I would conclude saying that IBD are characterized by a very strong impact on patients' quality of life and by a very high direct and indirect costs of the treatment. Not only of the treatment, the costs are very high, the indirect cost because of the absence on the work disability, as Mr. Cofferati said before. And I think that increasing the knowledge of the disease and their course, improving the access of inflammatory bowel disease patients to specialist medical care, supporting them with well-trained multidisciplinary teams, including also specialized surgeons, as we said before, but also psychologists that may help in, let's say, in increasing the compliance for this patient. All these factors are very important actions to reduce this negative impact that this disease may have, both on the quality of life of the patient, but also on the health system in general.
Thank you, Professor Lecchi, for this wide overview of the main issues related to IBD. You have for sure underlined important problems that we have to face every day, not only as patients, but also as patients advocate. The problem of compliance, for example, the problems of high direct cost and indirect cost, the issues related to the delayed diagnosis, and or maybe the fact that it's still considered erroneously a rare disease by too many GP. But I think that above all, the line that has hit me most about your speech has been when you described as one of outcomes of IBD, you say loss of energy, loss of trust, loss of hope. These are three, I think, severe outcomes that we have to take as a priority, particularly loss of hope, because I think one of the main purpose of a patient organization is to support our members and the people we represent also in this. But all these issues are clearly stating the difficulties that we have to face in our political agenda, and how to push these IBD related issues at the top of the European Union health agenda will be the task of the presentation of Professor Reinhold Stockbrugger.
Thank you very much, Marco, for inviting me, and EFCA to inviting me to this very important meeting. And I'm very glad that we have the chance to discuss with the two important members of the Parliament who will promote the action. This time I'm here as the chairman of the Public Affairs Commission of the United European Gastroenterology, and I just want to remember what we are. The United European Gastroenterology is a covering organization for 15 European societies in the field of gastroenterology and liver diseases, covering all the areas. But not only that, it also represents 41 national societies of gastroenterology, so is having an extension capillary to everyone who is interested in patients and in gastroenterology. And we have also one society, is the Society of Primary Care Physicians, with a special interest in gastroenterology. The patient will meet these first in the career, which is coming later on. We are a non-profit organization. Everything we are earning by our big congress, which is yearly, the UEGW, is going to education of our members, of our future members, and is also going into political and societal affairs, which we are promoting. And just to remember you that in the autumn of 2010, we succeeded in having a written declaration in the fight against colorectal cancer accepted in the European Parliament, and the action we are doing here now is the second large action which is supported by the European United Gastroenterology. I myself have been working with IBD professionally the last 40 years in all aspects. First as a young doctor, and now as you are seeing, as someone who is acting on the societal level, and also seeing still the patients in my own office. I don't want to tell you how that is all going, but I have been working in 6 European countries and know the differences which are in these countries. And fortunately, we had the chance in Maastricht to be chairing 2 European framework projects. And the one was on the influence of quality of care on the quality of life of patients with IBD. And the other one was about the epidemiology, the mortality, the treatment of Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis in 8 European countries. Studies which have never been repeated in any other region of the world. And I can tell you how I started to go in with this interest for how patients feel. When I started as a professor of gastroenterology in Maastricht, one of my first outpatient departments in broken Dutch, because I'm German and I didn't speak too well Dutch, was a family coming with their 2 children, 16 and 17 years old, which both had Crohn's disease, and asking me for their care. My main problem in the boys, the 17-year-old boy, was that he wanted to become a nurse. And in the university hospital where I worked and where I saw him as a patient, it was impossible to have him accepted in the school for nursing. So the surgeon and myself were fighting half a year to get him, and he was getting there. I was following these both patients for 17 years. He was becoming a nurse, and a very good one, and was going to mental health then later on, and she was becoming a happy young mother doing other business, and both were thriving. And I saw on my on the day of my going away and being pensioned from Maastricht, I saw them in the crowd coming to greet me. So that is what doctors should do, and they should be able to do that with the measures they are getting. And that is why I started to look at the quality of care and the quality of life which we can produce with the right type of care. Right, I think we had a very good overview about these diseases, the various diseases and the various shapes of the diseases and their demands on society and on us. But I just want, in the rest of my small talk, I want to illustrate what things are interesting for Europe in this aspect. Why are we sitting in the European Parliament, and what can European spirit add to our handling of these diseases and to the satisfaction of the patients? And there are various aspects. One is that this, especially Crohn's disease, is a new type of disease, is autoimmune disease. In the 19th century, autoimmune disease was not known. It was starting in the 20th century and becoming in the foreground. Rheumatoid arthritis, thyroiditis, and inflammatory bowel disease. And why that? Something in our environment has been changing. Certainly there might be a genetic part to it, but genetics don't change quickly. If a disease increases, like Crohn's disease, in a short time, and now is attacking more and more young people, children, it must be something in the environment. And we, as doctors, have to be curious to see what it is, because then we have got possibly in the future the possibility of primary prevention of the diseases, or looking to it that they only are appearing in a mitigated state and not in the heavy state like Crohn's disease is presenting itself nowadays. And some of our research was concerned with that, and we know that there are environmental factors. Smoking is the easiest one to find out, because Crohn's disease patients who don't stop to smoke have got more and severer disease than others, and are very difficult to treat. And especially young women suffer from that, because it's more women that have Crohn's disease, and they are young, and they have got difficulties to stop to smoke, much more than men, from one reason or other. So environmental factors. There seems to be one big factor behind, and that is the hygiene factor. The modern life, where we are washing ourselves and our children too much, where we not permit to have them small infections until they get big diseases. We treat everything with antibiotics from the beginning, and we disturb immunology and immunity of patients early. And in future programs against IBD, this aspect has to be really told to families and to societies, that there is a better balance between dirt and hygiene in the future. We have to accept wildlife in our lives as well. And in the field which I'm interested in, microbiome of the gut, it is shown that people who live together in the countryside with animals and with contact with dirt are doing better in their immunity in the future. So I think these are things which have to be researched into, and there the European community, with the ample grants they can give, and we are speaking about millions and millions of dollars, of euros, which many times are not used because there are not projects enough, can be used for IBD to look at these factors and to have education programs to fight it. Right. So we are speaking about a disease where we know a part of the causes, but not everything. In Europe, the first gene connected to IBD was found. But are we really strong in Europe in research about these diseases? We are not investing enough in the research. And that makes that we don't know too much about it, not even on a medium scientific and political level. It is unknown diseases for many. What we are doing now in Europe is that we are following the Americans and doing together with them the research they can't do alone. We have got perfect healthcare systems in many countries in Europe. The Americans haven't. And we are doing the studies of the drugs they develop in their laboratories, instead of really, as a rich continent, invest our gain into doing the research and giving it back as a profit, the results of it, as a profit to our population. Now a lot of money is going, and you all, as patients here present, will know the price of the biologicals, which are not invented, produced and sold in Europe, but coming into it, imported. We could do a lot with the European research money to change that situation and to take equal part in the scientific work for our population. There is another aspect which has been mentioned here, which is very important. Patients have got difficulties to access to qualified healthcare. From the recent scientific literature, it is known that high-frequency centers for IBD care are much better, have got much more better medical results, and are much more appreciated by their patients. Because it is difficult for doctors and also for gastroenterologists to be equally educated in every of the hundreds of diseases we are caring for. And IBD is becoming more and more complicated in the diagnosis and in the treatment. And high-frequency centers where people also from far away come and are treated by specialists in the field are necessary. And there are two studies that have shown that mortality is equal to the background mortality if patients are cared for in high-frequency centers. So these diseases do not need mortal, lethal anymore if we organize the care for them. And this is a classical example, a showcase as well, for that you have not to be rigid in your care of patient groups. You have to understand what are the bad points of care for an important disease like IBD. And then you have to change and to accommodate the care type to that. And society will gain by this flexibility and by this particularity. Right. We know that these changes of the background conditions, the hygiene type, will succeed in other countries as well. And if you go to Singapore and if you go to Hong Kong, you will see that they are living as well as we and better than we, and they have got these diseases. So the Chinese, who, when I started to speak with them about it 20 years ago, had few cases of IBD, now start to have epidemiological studies about it, so the same conditions are coming there. Coming back to what Europe could earn is if Europe would develop care models and drugs and other methods of treatment and diagnosis, then we could export them to the countries which are now coming into the area of IBD in the future. So let me summarize. We should adapt healthcare models to this increasing, frequent and heavy disease to prevent mortality and save money, which is necessity for better care for these patients. We have heard and discussed that the social conditions of every patient group with chronic disease should be improved. But as this is a disease of young people and ever getting younger people, it could really be a showcase model for the future. Because what we prevent and do now will get the gain in 20 or 30 years' times. And this is a showcase for Europe to show what we can do in the field of research and health promotion and healthcare organization if we really take our energies together internationally in Europe and care for this very intriguing order of diseases. And then, last not least, as a European Gastroenterology Organization, we are working together with the European Medicine Agency in London, and we are now, this is happening the last half year, for the first time asked about our opinion on how we should treat IBD. Before, they were going to America and asking American specialists. So I think that UEG together with EFCA and with ECHO have got a big task in the European community to promote your and our case. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can move on now to the debate, and to start the debate, because I don't know if you have any questions on the table, I would like to ask Professor Recchi a question. You've been speaking in a summary about this, speaking of the rights of EU citizens. It's a question on access to healthcare. Last year we carried out the impact study, and it showed that 24% of respondents felt they did not have access to IBD specialist care, depending on the country of origin. From a medical viewpoint, what are the implications of this? And should this be something of concern for policymakers?
Yes, I think I have outlined that an easy access to the medical team is very important for the treatment of inflammatory bowel disease, because I think that when the disease relapses, actually, the patient has to be seen and treated very quickly. Because if we wait too long, I think the disease will get worse, and then it will get more and more difficult to treat this type of relapse. So I think this is a very important issue, and I think that the possible solution would be, we were talking also about this with Professor Stockbrugger, the formation of a particular person in the team, which is the nurse dedicated to inflammatory bowel disease. This is a very important connection between the doctor, which he may be too busy to take care of all the patients that are calling, and this is one possibility. So the nurse dedicated to inflammatory bowel disease, and I think that the high volume centers that treat many patients with IBD have indeed already a person like this, a figure like this in their team. And this should be increased in the future, maybe with particular also type of, again, of masters or of preparation of educational course to prepare this type of figure. The second thing is another important way would be maybe the access can be by internet. From home to the hospital with communication by internet, and sometimes there are also calprotectin, for example, can be done at home, and can be and a patient can follow up the level of calprotectin, and maybe when they see the calprotectin goes up, they can call the doctor, because this increasing calprotectin may be, let's say, they may be predictive of a relapse. Okay, so I think the two main way to increase the access would be to create a new figure even for minor centers, let's say, the IBD nurse, and the second thing would be to increase the communication by internet.
Would you like to add something?
Yes, I think these were very, very important words. I can tell you that having a nurse, either male or female nurse, with whom you are sharing your outpatient department, at the same time who is seeing patients for the minor controls, but who is aware of and is trained to respond to the specialist in the moment that he is needed, and that you just can walk over the corridor and to see this patient and to help to resolve the problem is a perfect way of working. There are some countries like the Netherlands where that type of outpatient departments are getting more and more frequent. I can tell you the high-frequency centers are now established for the care of chronic hepatitis, because the treatment of chronic hepatitis and the follow-up and the controls are so complicated that a normal gastroenterologist, even with his good training in hepatology, can't do it anymore. Yeah? And there is directly money gained also for insurance companies and also for hospitals, because to have an adequate care and not to take the care which doesn't give for all what it costs and with goodwill doesn't give a result, saves resources for the real good care. Regarding the aspect of the distance care of patients, this is very interesting, and this comes then into my field of interest, because that can be used for many other diseases. If you develop a model of distant care for IBD, you can use that for rheumatoid arthritis, you can use that for hepatitis, or for whatever, for diabetes, for whatever. And with the people getting more and more used to electronic means, young people speak to each other only electronically nowadays, or mainly nowadays, we will have a generation of patients in the future who are used to sitting in front of the internet and to speak on a doctor who is on the screen and speaking to them, or to a nurse on that. And I was involved in a large European study where with just a finger stick of blood you could see how the state of patients was with liver failure and renal failure, and where you could alarm a center which was 200 kilometers far away. And that is for a patient enormously satisfying to have this access immediately, rationally and cheaply, without moving and spending money for taxis and family coming with him and so on. So these are very good examples how also European research and European research promotion is very much in the field of care and providing alternative care methods to the population, cross-border care as well. And there is lots of money to be used and to be spent, and for EFCA and ECHO developing models together for the care and studying that in a population-based way, a research way, would be an enormous step forward, not only for IBD, but for a lot of similar diseases.
Will we call these patients e-patients?
Yes. Yeah.
I think you've touched on a very interesting subject, which is also interesting for the policymakers, which is money. So it's the financial costs of IBD. Especially in the light of the economic crisis and the resulting huge cuts in the health and the social sector, what kind of arguments can we bring forward to support there are more resources in better health care for people with IBD, as well as more resources for research on IBD? I mean, we need to bring forward some strong arguments at the conference in October to make policymakers see that this is something they need to invest in. Would you like to comment, please?
one thing which we learned from our campaign against colorectal cancer, and which we put then on the top of our advertising, is that you earn money by colorectal cancer screening. The main argument against colorectal cancer screening at the first contact with someone, politicians, patients, hospital organizers, is we haven't got the money. And that is completely wrong. We have now the data, amongst others, from the German colorectal cancer screening of 3 million people in the last 5 years, and you earn per every screening colonoscopy about 500 euros. And in Germany, companies now do for their laborers and workers in office and on the floor offer screening because they gain in less absence from the job of the people who are cared for and invalidity, and similar models could be developed also for IBD. So the thing is that never admit to say that it costs more to get better care. It costs less, but it costs a little bit of thoughts, intellect, and working together and finding the right model. And the European Commission is waiting for ideas and for studies to do it, with multi-million grants to it. But you have to be many countries, and you have to involve patients into it. And what I'm saying is just a collaboration between ECHO, EFCA, and we are supporting this certainly with the means we are having as the UEG. Then you are in the middle of the political interest.
Thank you. We're running short of time, so...
Very short.
Yeah.
We just have performed a research in Lombardy about the costs of inflammatory bowel disease, and we have looked at those, and we confirm that around half of the cost for inflammatory bowel disease comes from hospitalization and surgery. So if we have a better treatment and to reduce hospitalization and surgery, this will immediately be a reduction of cost.
As I always say, we need to convince authorities in investing on us, because an investment on people with IBD is not a risky one, but in the right perspective, it's a way for better allocating resources that are scarce by definition.
I just use the argument, tell me to the politicians, tell me one company who is earning back money after the start immediately. You have to wait 5 years or to 10 years until a company is running again. And that is the same with investing right policies into diseases.
Thank you. Since we're running short of time, I wanted to have one question for Marco to close up the meeting as well, and I'm going to merge these questions. They concern work and education. We've been speaking in the impact study that 21% of respondents felt they had suffered discrimination at work, and even 44% of respondents said they had lost or had to quit their job because of their IBD. The figures in education look even worse. You have 52% of respondents felt that IBD had negatively affected their ability to perform to their full potential. I think these are very alarming and very sad figures, and I think one thing we should do, we should look at what measures we could do to be put in place by the relevant authorities to address this. That there is no discrimination at workplace, and that young people at education feel that they can participate as full citizens.
That's not an easy question at all, and but I would like to answer by reconnecting to what I was saying before. And it's once again investing and believing in people with IBD, because if we consider how much it costs to society to have an unemployed person or a student that is not able despite having all the capacities to gain its full potential, that means to create enough citizens. And by definition, that means to create citizens that will require more social help and more cost. So far, the answer probably that it's not easy at all, but it's to create flexible, supportive and non-discriminatory programs, both for works and for education. We need to, as Cofferati was saying this earlier this morning, we need to understand that we cannot look at IBD only with the rigid settings that are given by the actual legislation, because these will have a discriminatory effect only with the normal application of law, and this is against any principle of law. So that means that it's enough to find a way to be more flexible in the application of the law and to give the possibility of having a concrete support in the right moment. That doesn't mean to support everything and every time, but to give the right level of support in the right moment. Because we know that Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis are not working the same for everybody, are not always active in some subjects. Sometimes they can even give a long-term remission, and this should be taken into the right consideration. So I believe that we can gain effective medical consultation, we can gain good level of patients' employment and educational aspiration to be taken in the right account only if we are able to be creative but concrete in expressing new solutions. And I think that to be resilient in this case would be the best thing that we can do.
Are there, just to close up, are there any comments from the floor? Would you like to mention anything? No. So would you like to close the meeting? Thank you very much.
I want to thank once again all the partners and stakeholders that have been with us, the other organizations, the medical community, the scientific community, the other patients' organizations that have sent us messages of support. I want to thank also my colleagues in the board that are here today with me, so Chaim, Betty, Harne, and Daniel. The 19th of May is the World IBD Day, and I think it's important to give a positive message about it. It should be a day in which we can celebrate successes. I think that from last year to now we have gained important results. In the next months we are called to win many more challenges, and we are ready to do that. I'm calling the attention of our members and of the people that we do represent on the upcoming event in the middle of October. Their presence, their support, their voice is important for us, because it's the only way we have to make the event in October really relevant for our everyday life. And I want to stress once again the necessity of being united with the medical community and to work together, to gather forces, because IBD are difficult and challenging diseases, but I think that together we can win this. Thank you.